2024 was a huge year for voice AI agents, and since the beginning of January 2024 and now January 2025, a lot has changed. We went from being able to create pretty basic voice chatbots to agents that can handle complex phone calls whilst sounding extremely human. I'm talking about AI voice agents that can schedule appointments, handle customer service, and even close sales. I spent my entire 2024 deep in the trenches, building, testing, and selling these voice AI solutions at my agency, Artillo AI. In that time, I've learned my fair share about this space. I don't claim to be an expert. In fact, I don't really think there's such a thing as a voice AI agent expert, as this space is just so new. But that being said, the knowledge I had about this space in January 2024 and now, like I said, a year later, is and has definitely changed a lot. So in this video, I wanted to compile all the most important things I learned about AI voice agents in 2024 so that I can save you the hours I spent learning these things. Okay, I'll start off by explaining the most important concept that you have to learn when building or doing anything with voice AI agents, and that is knowing the difference between an AI voice orchestration layer and a speech-to-speech API or speech-to-speech model. Okay, so I'll explain voice AI orchestration layers first, as it is a little bit more complicated, and it's better to get this and understand this before we go into speech-to-speech. So when we get a caller's audio and we are speaking to a person, or the AI is speaking to a person, we are obviously retrieving data of audio, just like I'm speaking to my microphone right now. We need to be able to send that to the AI and get some sort of AI response back in audio. So what we do is we take that audio and we send it to the speech-to-speech model, otherwise known as the ears, and we get that audio to be transcribed into text. So like I were to say, hi, can I order some fries? AI isn't able to do anything with that just based on the audio. But once we give that audio and transcribe it and turn it into text, then we can pass that into the LLM and into the brain in order to get some sort of response. So we've taken that transcribed audio and we get a response to that audio with the large language model. So the LLM or the brain might say something like large or medium. Now we have this as text, and obviously we're on a phone call or we're in a conversation, and so we need to now send that back to a text-to-speech model in order to have that as audio. So this can be kind of looked at as the mouth. Now that is it for the entire voice AI orchestration. Obviously that's pretty simple. I think most people can understand it. And this is more of a pipeline approach compared to speech-to-speech API, where these models are trained on audio in and audio out. So essentially most LLMs are trained on text. This is what, if someone inputs, you should output roughly. And that's what they're trained on. Whereas speech-to-speech API is trained on caller audio, or any audio being inputted. The audio is inputted and we get AI audio instantly outputted after. We don't have any sort of pipeline approach in between. We don't need to transcribe text. We don't need to send it to an LLM. It is all done at once. The AI model can recognize audio and create audio based on that audio. It is that simple. I mean, how it works on the back end, it's been trained on audio in and audio out. And because of that, it works with audio being inputted in. Now, the difference between this is that the speech-to-speech API can, understand things a bit better. For example, let's say in the caller audio, I cough. I said, hi, can I get some fries? And I coughed during that thing. Now, if I were to send that to a transcription model, it doesn't care to transcribe a cough into the text. It doesn't matter to it. It's only transcribing text. Whereas a speech-to-speech API might hear that you've coughed and say, oh, or sneezed. Let's say sneezed is better, right? I sneezed in between that and it said bless me, right? Or it said bless you. This is because it would understand that due to its audio in just being kept as audio. Now, this is a benefit of the speech-to-speech API and any sort of end-to-end speech-to-speech API, but the negative is that we have much more expensive conversation. If you were to think about the LLM conversation or the voice AI orchestration layer conversation, we are going from speech to text, LLM, and then text to speech, which means that we're mostly dealing with text, and the audio, once we have used and transcribed the audio, is kind of ignored, and we kind of store most of the information in text. So, hi, can I order some fries? No, sorry. Why? We don't do them. Oh, okay. Right? Compared that to the speech-to-speech API, where everything has to be stored in audio. So the user said something, i.e., hi, can I order some fries? The assistant said something back, like no. the user responded with OKY. The assistant said, because we don't have them, user said okay, and then the assistant said maybe goodbye, right? All of those things for the speech-to-speech API to understand what to say next and what to expect has to be stored in audio format, which just causes the pricing of the speech-to-speech API to be significantly more. Now, another thing that needs to be mentioned is that both these things need to work on their conversational technology, let's say. What I mean by this is, for voice AI agents, obviously, we need to have a well-structured conversation, I would say. And, the OpenAI real-time API is extremely good at taking audio in and outputting audio. And so is the voice AI orchestration layer. It can take audio in and output audio. But to actually create a well-flowing conversation that has, human response, AI response, human response, AI response, and just like a well-flowing conversation, we need to have conversational technology. So basically, the big question is it the AI's turn to talk? So for example, something that, humans do in a conversation is sometimes they think about something. So you might say, oh, when should we go to the shopping mall, right? And it took you a second or half a second to say, go to the shopping mall. You kind of had that pause and you were thinking about something. Now, if you were to just think, oh, when the human stops speaking, that's when the AI can respond, then obviously you're kind of missing the conversational technology, as it's not the AI's turn to talk. So answering that question is basically the difficult part and basically the whole thing of conversational technology. And obviously, if it is the AI's turn to respond, we want to trigger the response, either the speech-to-speech API response or the voice AI orchestration layer response. And if it isn't the response, or if it isn't the AI's turn to talk, then we just wait until it is. So that is kind of the difference between these two models. It's the expensive versus cheap, some loss of nuance, some loss of context in the voice AI orchestration, very little bits of loss of context in the speech-to-speech API, slightly lower latency, slightly higher latency, but both have to work on their conversational technology, as these are just audio in, audio out, responses, but we have to have good conversational technology in the sense that we need to know if it is the AI's turn to talk. Okay, so the next thing I learned, and I think people will find useful, is for me to answer what platform I use to build and deploy my AI voice agents when I'm building for different clients and, when I'm actually putting these things into production. My quick answer is Retail AI. I use this platform for a lot of my deployments. However, if I were to go into the question with a bit more depth and a bit more nuance, I would have to say the best platform out there for me, and in my opinion, is Cinderin. I've mentioned this platform before. I've had the founder on a podcast before, and the reason why I believe this platform is the best is I just believe the conversational technology in the back end, the one I mentioned just before, is the best. The way that they handle everything is just the best. However, the reason why I don't use this platform, and hopefully it's something that Brian and his team will, fix and update in the future, is that the cost currently and the concurrency limits is just too big of a problem for me to be able to use the platform for production. Now, the cost isn't, incredible. It's maybe 20, 30, 40% increase in the cost of other platforms like Retail and Vapi. However, the concurrency rates, even at the highest plan, you only get 7 concurrent calls. Compare that to Retail AI, where you get 20 for free for the pay as you go, and you can just add more concurrency by paying $8 a month extra per, extra piece of concurrency, which is just so useful and so easy, and just makes scaling up your agents or scaling down your agents so easy. Okay, so the next thing I learned was how to build more complex AI voice agents, as well as more reliable complex AI voice agents. So obviously some implementations are easier and harder of the technology, and that kind of difference in difficulty dictates how we go about building the AI voice agent. Now, one of the most reliable ways to improve the performance and the consistency and the reliability of an AI voice agent that is extremely complex, let's say the task it has to do is, multi-step and just quite difficult, is to use some sort of a multi-prompt system. Basically, what we want to do is to give the AI, or the LLM specifically, one task and one task at a time only. Let me visualize what I mean by this thing. So this would be a single prompt, right? The single prompt system. If we have an extremely difficult and complex task, we might have this many routes that the AI could take, right? You know, if X happens, do Y, but if A happens, do B, and if B happens before A, do Z. However, if A happens, then execute AB, but should AC manifest, then implement AD, and if AE takes place, then carry out AF, right? These things can actually happen. If you think of a complex scenario, there's many routes that the conversation could go down. Now, this is not easy to understand, right? LLMs aren't geniuses. In fact, no one would be able to take this task and understand what they're doing. So this is kind of what causes issues and reliability issues. So what we want to do is somehow create prompts that change based on state. So I'll explain this to you over here. We have the multi-prompt system. So we have different states. As you can see, we have state A, state B, and state C. And the way we do it is we give them a role, context, whatever, and a task. And this task is much more simple. As you can see, it is, we are currently in X, so you have to do Y, right? Which makes it really simple for the LLM to understand. And once Y is done, the AI would trigger state B, which is extremely simple. You're giving it one function to move to state B and one task to do in order to move to state B. Then in state B, we would be like, you know, you are still C, you know, the role is the same, but the task changes. We are currently in Y, you must do Z. Then once they've done that, they move to state C, you are C, we are currently in Z, you must do AB, right? We give them one simple task for them to do and to accomplish, and for them and the LLM, it is so much easier to understand. Okay, let me open my browser and jump onto retail and show you kind of what this looks like practically. So if I jump onto retail, let me log in. Okay, so jump onto retail and create an agent. And instead of choosing a single prompt agent, we do multi-prompt agent. Pretty simple. And we go start from blank. Now, what I like about this as well is you can type in a universal prompt for your agents. So this is the kind of role or the conversational style, the objective, like I showed in the Figma. And it is really useful. So here you would say, you know, you are a pizza restaurant. Again, I love this example just because it's easy. Restaurant order taker, and your job is to take pizza restaurant orders. Then we could jump into the prompt tree, and like now that it has its, you know, rough role and it knows what it's doing, we can create a new state. And let's say this would be like, you know, the person first enters the call. The pizza restaurant one isn't too complicated of an example, but you know, the multi-prompt still works in this demo. So we could have a state like introduction, and then here we would simply be like, you must ask them how their day is. You must ask them, you must get their name, and you must ask them why they are calling. Right? Pretty simple. And then what we could do is go off this, press a new state, go down here, save it first of all, and then link this. So we could move and link state 2 with introduction. Now in state 2, we could have this. Now between them, we need to kind of explain the condition as to when the agent will move to this path. So with state 2, we might be like, if the person wants to book a reservation, go here. So basically if they want a reservation, to go to this part, and it's like, now you are in the reservation state of the call. Please ask how many people they want to dine with, what time, and ask them if they have any other notes about their reservation. And then we could put i.e. allergies, specific requests. Then we could again add some context maybe or whatever, but that's, you know, already a good state. And then we could add another state again for this multi-prompt, and we link it once again to the top one. But this time for the path condition, we say if they want to know an answer to a specific question, go to this path. And then in this state, we explain how the AI should deal with questions. So we could be like, to answer a user's question, to answer a customer's question, use the knowledge base. And then we would add a knowledge base and basically, let the agent know that is how it deals with answering specific questions. Now, this is really incredible because it's not conversational pathways, because conversational pathways is like a bit more strict. This is more multi-prompts with a sense of conversational pathways. It's a mixture between conversational pathways and, prompts, which I really, really like. It's prompting and changing the system prompt based on the conversation, which I just really, really like, because it just means you have a universal prompt, which you can, say things like, make sure to say, during the conversation as you are a bit nervous and things like that, right? It's like those things are now going to be followed regardless of what part of the prompt tree we're in, which I really, really like. So let's get to the next thing I learned, which is all about how to go from testing AI voice agents to real world production. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this is still definitely something I'm looking on how to improve. And, I always want to get better at going from, a random retail AI scenario to production, the AI actually handling real world phone calls and dealing with those things. But I do have a little thing or a little trick that I have when it comes to deploying or going from testing to deployment in order to kind of make that transition a bit smoother. Okay, so let's say we have an outbound agent and we have a lead list of 10,000 leads that it is going to call in the end. The way I would go about going from the tested AI voice agent, this is already the tested AI voice agent, the one that we think we're ready to go into production with. The way I would do it is give it maybe 50, maybe 100 calls to kind of go through, see how those calls go. Maybe it takes a day or so. And then I would go into the analysis of each one of those calls, the summary, the transcript, and basically read to see if there are any big red flags. And if there are the red flags, go back into the prompt, go back into the system and fix it. If there aren't any sort of big red major flags, then we go into the voice recordings and basically look at the conversational flow. How is the agent talking? Is it, saying the right kind of formality? Is it too professional? Is it too casual? How is it looking? And change those things there. And even if there is a red flag and we fix it, then I still do that step of looking at the conversational flow and fixing those things too. This way, we are changing things that actually are happening in the real world, but we're not also just giving it and sending it to all 10,000 leads instantly. And kind of, if there's a major mistake that it's going to do, we're having that thing happen to all 10,000 people. Instead, we're kind of having a test sample. Then obviously, once we've kind of looked at all those calls and have improved all those different things, then once we feel like, we're ready, we will launch it, we'll deploy it, we'll have it calling, kind of nonstop. And basically, I'll just be on high alert, looking at transcripts, looking for any red flags. Sometimes I even get my agent to trigger notifications or like get some sort of system to trigger notifications if some sort of red flag occurs in a transcript or in a summary. And that way I can kind of, pause the deployment and kind of look at the issues and, tweak them and improve them. Okay, so the next thing I learned in 2024 that I want to say in this video is actually something not to do with building AI voice agents and more to do with selling. It's not a story that I'm too proud of, but, I'll explain it anyway and, tell you what I learned from it for those people that are trying to look to sell these voice AI solutions. So I had closed a project for an inbound AI voice agent, and the issue kind of arises when, in order to close them, I kind of let them do and build a prototype of whatever they want. So the way I usually work is I get with the person on a call, kind of understand what they want to do, and then we will map out the kind of conversation that we want to build with the AI voice agent. Now, the issue, like I said, is that I let them build out that conversation as big as they wanted. I let them push the limits of the kind of technology at the time. And, I kind of did it in order to just be able to close them, to just be able to get the money. And then the issue was that I couldn't actually accomplish that task, because the way that they did it was that they made this scope of work for the conversation so big, so complex. No matter how many multi-prompt systems I had, LLMs were just not at the stage. The voice technology as a whole just wasn't at the stage. They complained about the conversational technology, it kept cutting them off, and things just went a bit south from there, and it didn't end to well. So the lesson I learned was basically to set pretty clear expectations, right? I like to give my potential clients, my leads, the people that I'm working with, in order to see whether working together with them is a good thing to do, is I'll give them a demo of the technology. So I want to kind of get them to understand how the voice AI orchestration layers differ, and to get them to really understand and have real expectations of where the technology is. Okay, so this is going to be the last thing I learned about AI voice agents that is in this video. Obviously, I learned a lot more, but if I were to do a video on everything I learned in 2024 in terms of this space, I would literally be sitting here for 12 hours. So let's just do this last one. And this video is more about the major things I learned and the major things that would be important for you to know, and I think would save you a lot of time. Now, this lesson I learned is not even building, it's not even testing. It's kind of to do with selling. I kind of noticed that 2024 was the year of the technology improving. We kind of had a lot of AI hype in 2023 and it pushed over to 2024. But early 2024, beginning to be middle 2024, I've started to notice some AI cynicism. I think, with everything, there's always a pendulum. It swung all the way AI hype, and then it swung back towards AI cynicism, and there's still some now. And a lot of people basically think that AI and LLMs are just completely useless and will never do anything. And even though that was, a big crowd of people saying those things, I noticed a lot more people willing and a lot more companies willing to implement voice AI technology. To me, 2024 was the year of the voice AI core technology developing. We progressed a lot in the core technology in 2024. For example, early 2024, Air AI, something that no one even talks about in this space anymore. Not to be rude, but it's just the technology is behind comparing it to Retail, to Vapi, to even Synflow and Bland. And even if you look at Synflow or Bland in early 2024, comparing it to now, the technology has improved a lot, and you can clearly tell that the conversational AI voice agents have improved a lot. So basically the lesson I learned was that, people were still happy to start implementing this technology, even though there was a lot of AI cynicism. I think that's a lot to do with the technology maturing and improving. And my kind of prediction based on that thing is that 2025 year will be the year of people implementing this technology on a larger scale. I think we kind of had that little bump of people implementing it, but I think 2025 will really skyrocket the implementation of this technology. I think that's because the technology is going to mature. We're going to understand its, limitations better. We're going to understand where it can implement better. People like me and the other people in the community will know how to sell this technology better, because obviously we now have experience. We know where it brings real world value to companies. Okay. So those were the major things I learned about AI voice agents in 2024. I must say I'm extremely excited for 2025. Well, it is 2025 as I'm recording this, and I'm really excited for this year to work hard to hopefully, progress well with the company, as well as, understanding the technology even more, knowing how to implement it even better. Hopefully you found this video valuable, and if you have any sort of suggestions for video ideas and you want to see certain things about the voice AI space, please just write a comment and let me know. Thank you.